What is going on, everybody? My name is Kneeckoh, and welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet VGC video. Today, we are going to be talking about Pokemon that got added in Regulation E in the Teal Mask that have gotten significant buffs, and there are a long laundry list of Pokemon that got like new moves and stuff, and I'm not going into specifically in depth on all of those different Pokemon because there's like a ton of new moves that were added to a bunch of stuff. I'm talking specifically about a handful of Pokemon that were previously relatively bad or had specific use cases that are now picking up because changes that were made in either Scarlet and Violet or with their abilities and things of that nature. So if this is your first time here on the channel, make sure you are subbed for more videos like this in the future, and let me know in the comments below what you're most excited about for Regulation E. But let's get into it. So I don't think we can necessarily start this video without talking about the change to Empoleon. Empoleon is genuinely so freaking fun to play now because in the past its hidden ability was Defiant. If you're unaware of what Defiant does, let me pull up King Gambit for you, okay? King Gambit, Defiant, if you get hit with Intimidate, it raises your attack by 2 stages. Very, very solid. However, if you look at Empoleon, its attack stat is significantly lower than its special attack stat, which means Defiant really didn't do a whole lot for this particular Pokemon. Honestly, it just was kind of a mid ability to have on this Pokemon, making Empoleon not that viable in competitive play. However, in the Teal Mask, this hidden ability was changed to competitive, which is actually really solid because now rather than having its attack stat increased by 2 stages, you're getting its special attack increased by 2 stages, which is very solid, and it has a very decent special attack stat to begin with 111 base special attack. So this can be a very powerful Pokemon, especially considering the fact that it is a water steel type. You have a lot of coverage options here with this particular Pokemon into things like Flutter Mane, into fire type Pokemon like Ogerpon's very popular right now. So there's a lot of things that this Pokemon does and can do very well, and it is a very solid bring into a lot of teams now because of this new ability. Not to mention there are some other fun changes to this particular Pokemon, especially coming off the back of Pokemon Legends Arceus. It did get access to a handful of other things. First off, it got Roost. That is very cool. Gotta really enjoy the fact that this Pokemon can now heal itself back up like it could in Legends Arceus. A couple other things that this did get, it does get like Wave Crash now if you care, but it doesn't really matter that much because now you have competitive. It's a very fun Pokemon though, especially when you consider you can run it next to a lot of really goofy things. For example, one of the Discord members made a team that I was considering making myself with Surf Empoleon next to Water Ogerpon, which gets Water Absorb. So you can sit there and spam Surf over and over and heal up your Ogerpon while also dealing a bunch of damage with your Empoleon, actually making one of the strongest water special attacks viable because it hits both Pokemon. It's not a move that you necessarily see, and I think the only time that you really see it is if like a Gastrodon's on the team, or if you see I don't think Gastrodon even works because Gastrodon would just absorb it. But other things that you would see it with would be Dondozo. We saw in I don't remember what regional it was last season, but we saw a special attacking Dondozo in the rain with Surf. I actually ran the team on the channel. It's a very fun combination. So there's a lot of fun things that you could do with Empoleon now, and it is probably the most significant change that we have seen in the DLC. Moving on to the other Sinnoh Starters. Actually, I feel like all the Sinnoh Starters got little minuscule buffs. Like, they're not like meta defining by any means, but they are cool and you can actually utilize them on teams now. And I am a big fan of this because these are some of my favorite starter Pokemon in the series. So I'm really excited for a lot of the changes here. Torterra is an interesting one. Shell Armor to begin with is just a really good ability, especially when you consider the fact that like Urshifus are running around. Like, imagine Shell Armor with just like a Rocky Helm on this Pokemon. Just being able to do that much damage to an Urshifu is really solid. So I do really like Torterra in regards to it just being a pretty decent Pokemon with a decent ability, but it did get access to a new move, Shell Smash. Really solid here. Lowers the defense and special defense by 1 stage, which can be problematic if you are not careful. However, it raises the attack, special attack, and speed by 2 stages, which honestly is really solid when you consider the fact that Torterra has a mid speed tier, right? 56 speed is not that great. However, double this and you're looking at a 112 speed tier, and under Tailwind that is outspeeding the likes of things like Dragapult, I believe. Let me double check that. I'm almost 100% positive it's outspeeding Dragapult at that point. Let me just max that out, put this at level 50. I want to say that, but I said it and I'm not 100%. Throw Jolly on it. Yes, you are going to outspeed Dragapult by 1 speed point with this particular Pokemon after Shell Smash is active under Tailwind. Which is really, really solid. You're outspeeding Flutter Mane. You're not going to outspeed Booster Energy Bundle. You got to invest more speed for that. But I don't think that's necessarily necessary for this Pokemon. But all in all, really solid addition to this particular Pokemon. I think it's very, very powerful. Having the ability to do this, you could throw like a White Herb on it to get rid of the defense drops after you get Shell Smash off. So all in all, it's just a really, really cool Pokemon to be able to throw this stuff on. You could even, if you were like, didn't want to run Farigiraf or Indeedee with this Pokemon and wanted to avoid Fake Out, you could go Terra Ghost and be able to just avoid the Fake Out altogether, get your Shell Smash up and start running the show. Very, very solid combination for this new for this particular Pokemon in the new edition of Shell Smash. I really like it. As far as Infernape goes, it's fairly less significant than the other two. I would say Empoleon is easily the best change. However, it did get access to Raging Fury, which is a really, really cool move that was added in Pokemon Legends Arceus and is very solid because it is a Fire-type Outrage. Now, I don't know if you know this, but not a lot of Pokemon like taking fire damage. It's a very powerful type to use, and looking at things like Flutter Mane, things of that nature, just that are not going to take hits all that well from any physical attacker in general, being able to just click this move, go in and attack Pokemon is very, very solid. It does so much damage. So honestly, in my brain, running this with like Focus Sash, don't change to Iron Fist, keep it on Blaze. You get to the 1 HP and you'll do even more damage. Max the attack, max the speed, right? Give it a Jolly Nature and throw just like 4 here, right? This is really solid next to something that could set Tailwind for you, like Tornadus or things of that nature, allowing you to do a lot of damage very quickly. This is a very powerful Pokemon, decent speed stat all around, so I genuinely think that this Pokemon could be really, really solid. As just like that one-off goofy, like do a bunch of damage, knock a bunch of things out, then die and swap into something a little more useful, right? So like I said, not as significant a change as something like Torterra or Empoleon with the moves. However, I think this is going to be really fun, and I'm really keen to try and team build with it myself and see what I can do. Next up, we have Shiftry, and Shiftry is very significant as far as changes go. Looking at Shiftry, we got Windrider. Now, if you're not familiar with Windrider, one of the most recent Pokemon that really benefits from this is Brambleghast. Brambleghast has been very popular. It's top-cutting tournaments because of its access to Windrider. And I think that's really solid because if you look at Brambleghast, there's not a whole lot of moves that this Pokemon actually gets. However, if you look at Shiftry's move pool, you have a lot more options as far as physical attacks go to benefit from the Windrider. And I think this makes Shiftry not necessarily meta-defining or a really like a huge contender. However, I do think it is a niche pick that can fit on certain teams and perform very well. I've seen some people running it with like Focus Sash, just so that way you can guarantee 2 turns with this Pokemon, because its defensive stats are very mediocre, and I think Brambleghast was running the same, where you just run Focus Sash on this, maximize the amount of damage you can do with the Pokemon while it's available to you, and then just go ahead and hit things very, very hard. So I think Shiftry can be really solid. It gets access to things like, not Fleef, it gets access to Leaf Blade. It also gets access to Knockoff, a Brick Break, a handful of things that are really solid for this particular Pokemon. So I do really like this. It also makes you immune to Icy Wind, Heat Wave, things that you can very easily predict are coming and be able to switch into. This makes Shiftry very fun and very interesting as a possible team member in the DLC. Moving on. Now, not a lot has really changed with this Pokemon. It does essentially what it did before, and that is Alolan Ninetales. Alolan Ninetales does pretty much the exact same it has always done. However, what you can consider is that now with the change to Snow in Scarlet and Violet, Alolan Ninetales is significantly better because you are getting the defense boost while Snow is active, which is honestly a very big buff for this Pokemon because you're able to simply max out the HP, max out the speed. You have a very fast Aura Veil setter as well as a semi-bulky Pokemon that can take hits very effectively. And I really like this Pokemon for this reason. And it's enabling a lot of other Pokemon to perform well, or it's just being a very useful Pokemon in the sense that you don't even have to run a Snow team to get a lot of benefit from having this Pokemon, because you just throw Light Clay on this thing and you're gonna go ahead and set Aura Veil, and you now have double screens up, and you are that much bulkier. So I really like Alola Ninetales, not necessarily because of a huge change that occurred in the DLC, a new move addition, a new ability, nothing like that, but because of how something worked fundamentally in the form of snow weather in Scarlet and Violet. So because of that, it's very good. Pokemon that are solid with it are Baxcalibur. Baxcalibur is seeing a little bit of a resurgence. It's been a Pokemon that's been fairly popular in competitive play because of its just straight power that you get from like Glaive Rush, Icicle Spear, Icicle Crash. You know, there's a lot of different sets of Baxcalibur that have been running. You know, Earthquake was very popular for a time. So just a really cool Pokemon all around to use. But it did also get the access to the new move High Horsepower, so you don't have to rely on Earthquake to be able to have that ground coverage option, which I think is really solid for Baxcalibur in particular. It gives you a lot of counterplay into things like Iron Hands, which is really solid. So I think Baxcalibur, because of this particular move change, as well as the addition of Alola Ninetales, is a Pokemon that you need to keep your eye on in Regulation E. I've been messing around with it in some of my team builders, and I'm really enjoying it. So I definitely think it's a solid Pokemon. But all in all, these Pokemon got a lot of really cool changes and are definitely something you need to keep your eye out on if you're trying to build a really fun ladder team or something to that effect. I think Apollyon, of all of these, and Alola Ninetales, I think are the Pokemon that are going to see the most use in like actual tournament settings because of their new abilities or the effectiveness of that particular Pokemon. Like previously, we've seen snow teams, right? But we've only seen things like Abomasnow, which isn't necessarily the best Pokemon. So having access to something like Alola Ninetales that is very fast and decently healthy is a very nice change, and is something that we're probably going to see pop up if we see snow teams popping up in competition. Apollyon is just a solid water type Pokemon. Honestly, if you're not running Surf, you do have to rely on like Hydro Pump or Water Pledge is another move that you can run on this Pokemon. So it does have some limitations, but it is very powerful when set up in the right circumstances. So very cool all around. Let me know in the comments what your favorite change is and what Pokemon you're most excited to try out in Regulation E. But that is going to be it for this video, guys. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, leave a like and sub for more videos like this in the future. Also, be sure to check out the Discord people over there hanging out playing Pokemon all the time. And if you want to see anything else from me, check out any of the videos that you see here on screen. But until next time, peace.